You're doing everything right, and that's exactly why you feel wrong. Let me tell you something most people won't admit out loud. The story of Great Zimbabwe doesn't add up. But the real twist? It's not about aliens. It's about us. This ancient confidence rule still works in 2025. Nothing is ever built this precisely by accident. Pause. Before you scroll away, this is important. Deep in southeastern Africa, beyond the acacia-dotted plains and winding rivers, rises a structure that defies its era, its builders, and even its timeline. Great Zimbabwe, a sprawling complex of elliptical and circular stone enclosures, granite walls up to 36 feet high, running 820 feet long, built without a single drop of mortar. Let that sink in. No cement, no clay, no binding agent, just stone, stacked with such precision that even modern engineers shake their heads. Most archaeologists place its construction between the 11th and 15th centuries CE, a remarkable Iron Age achievement. But the story doesn't start there, because the land around the ruins tells a different truth, a much older one. Gold mines pepper the region, some dated to as early as 3000 BCE. Fragments of gold artifacts, melted, shaped, refined, lie buried beneath layers of sediment that predate the ruins themselves. And if you ask the Shona elders, they'll tell you stories whispered for generations.
There were foreigners from the sky. They came for metal. They left stone behind.
Now anyone could dismiss that as legend, but legends tend to cling to something real. And here's where the first real crack in the story appears. Because here's the detail nobody mentions, and once you see it, you can't forget it. Great Zimbabwe isn't just a pile of stones, it's a mathematical instrument. Certain walls line up with the winter solstice sunrise. Others frame the heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. Some align with the cycles of Venus, a planet the ancient Shona connected with time, rebirth, and destiny. Iron Age builders shouldn't have had the tools, the calculations, or the astronomical models to design such alignments. Yet they did, or someone did. Now ask yourself, why would a medieval kingdom build a giant architectural calendar that tracks the heavens? Why the precision? Why the scale? Why the risk? Because the answer is hidden in plain sight, and it changes everything about ancient history. Let's talk about gold, the metal that refuses to rust, tarnish, or decay. Civilizations worshipped it. Empires rose for it. People killed for it. But here's a strange historical truth. Gold is not very useful for survival. You can't eat it, you can't hunt with it, you can't build with it. So why did nearly every ancient culture, from Sumer to Egypt to the early Shona, treat gold as sacred? Believers argue something radical. Great Zimbabwe wasn't just a royal enclosure. It was a gold processing center for visitors who came to Earth from the sky. The region's oldest mines? Ancient tunnels that seem carved with tools more efficient than chisels. Gold particles found embedded in furnaces, melted at temperatures higher than traditional Iron Age kilns could reach. If you follow the conspiracy crowd, they point to beings known as the Anunnaki, sky travelers who mined Earth for metals. But what if the story is stranger and closer than that? Because here's the real twist, and I promise it's not the one you think. Time. We think it moves forward, but ancient cultures viewed it as a loop. The Shona word Zimbabwe, the origin of Zimbabwe, means houses of stone, but it also carries a dual meaning tied to ancestry, memory, and return. Return, as in coming back. And that's where the theory shifts from aliens to something much more uncomfortable. Throughout the ruins, you find carvings, patterns, and structural decisions that look suspiciously modern in concept. Walls curved for stability, like modern earthquake-resistant architecture. Specific gaps that create sound amplification chambers. Stones arranged to regulate temperature in ways identical to contemporary passive cooling systems. Pathways designed to control foot traffic, like modern urban planning. How did Iron Age builders know this? Unless they didn't, someone else did, someone from a different time. Let me tell you something most people won't admit out loud. We are terrified of the idea that we visited ourselves. Because if ancient aliens weren't aliens, if the sky people weren't extraterrestrial, if the builders of Great Zimbabwe weren't gods, then what were they? Time travelers, humans from a distant future, returning to stabilize a past that had to unfold exactly as it did. Now, before you say that's ridiculous, consider this. Time travel doesn't require magic. It requires physics. And the math for temporal displacement isn't fictional anymore. It's theoretical, but possible. Imagine a future human civilization advanced enough to manipulate gravitational fields. They travel not across space, but across time, back to periods where humanity hit evolutionary bottlenecks, back to moments where civilizations needed a nudge. What if Great Zimbabwe was one such nudge? Not a settlement made by aliens, but a settlement left for us by our own descendants. A breadcrumb in the timeline, a message hidden in stone. And if you think that's far-fetched, wait until you hear the next part. Here's what psychologists and sociologists know. Humans don't build massive, labor-intensive structures without a reason that feels larger than themselves. The pyramids, Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, Great Zimbabwe, these weren't built for fun. They were built to last. Now imagine you're a time traveler. You want to leave a message for the past, something durable, symbolic, indestructible. You'd use stone. You'd encode astronomical alignments because the stars don't change. You'd use geometry because mathematics is a universal language. That's exactly what Great Zimbabwe is. A durable node in the human timeline. But we missed the message. Or maybe we interpreted it the only way we could. As the work of gods. As the presence of sky beings. Because what else would ancient people call futuristic humans? Visitors from the heavens, beings of light, travelers in shining vessels. And the strangest evidence of all is something you've probably never heard of. In the 19th century, when European explorers found Great Zimbabwe, they couldn't believe Africans built it. That racist assumption slowed real research for decades. But here's the shocking part. Early explorers documented blueprints, not drawn but carved directly into smaller stones found near the site. Simple etched outlines showing the curve of the great enclosure. But those stones, they vanished, lost in private collections, never recovered. Why carve a blueprint? The Shona did not build with plans on paper or stone. They built through generational memory. Blueprints suggest something else. Instruction, direction, teaching, which leads to the unsettling question, who were they teaching? And this next clue, this one might give you chills. Shona elders repeat a story. We were shown how to build. We did not learn it ourselves. That's the phrasing. Shown, not taught, not discovered. Shown, the beings who showed them. Described as tall, radiant, with odd artifacts, speaking in harmonious tones that bent the air. Sound familiar? Every culture that describes ancient aliens describes the same traits. Now ask yourself, if time travelers appeared in the past, armed with future technology, how would people describe them? Beings with glowing suits, travelers with lights that hover, voices modified by communication devices. They'd call them gods, visitors, sky people. But here's the part where everything flips upside down. There's a theory in temporal physics called the bootstrap paradox. It says, an object or idea can exist without origin because it loops through time. A book written in the future, taken back to the past, used to inspire the author who eventually writes it. So let's apply it. Future humans travel back in time. They help construct Great Zimbabwe. Shona people learn techniques. Centuries later, those same techniques help shape the history that eventually leads to the future humans who learned about Great Zimbabwe. A closed loop. Great Zimbabwe isn't a mystery. It's a message, not from aliens, from us. And once you see this final piece, you'll never look at ancient history the same way again. If you've been feeling off lately and you can't explain why, this is for you. People feel disconnected because we've forgotten where we come from. We're told history is linear, primitive to advanced, stone to steel, caves to skyscrapers. But the ruins at Great Zimbabwe whisper a different story. One where humanity doesn't climb a ladder, but walks a circle, where we're not alone in the cosmos, but guided by our own future, where civilization is not an accident, but a collaboration across centuries. And maybe, just maybe, we are the ancient aliens we've been searching for. You've heard the legends. You've seen the stones, but the real twist? The story of Great Zimbabwe isn't finished. Because somewhere, buried in its walls, its tunnels, its alignments, is the next clue. And once we find it, everything changes. The past is waiting. Are you?